1. Imperialism. Imperialism, derived from the ancient word empire, refers to the exertion of power or control by a state beyond its borders, forcefully occupying territories and kingdoms for exploitation and placing them under its authority. Imperialism is closely linked to colonialism. It is divided into military, economic, and cultural imperialism. 2. Militarism. Militarism refers to the dominance of the military. It encompasses 4 states within the army organization: militarism in warfare, military dominance over the state apparatus, glorification of militarism, and national mobilization for military purposes. When these 4 states are fully established, it is referred to as complete militarism. Militarism provides a groundwork for dictatorships, Nazism, and Phalanxism. 3. Despotism. Despotism is a term for governments that come to power through tyranny and assassination. 4. Nazism. Nazism refers to the government of Germany during the Adolf Hitler era and sometimes is synonymous with fascism. Nazi is also an abbreviation for the National Socialist German Workers' Party led by Hitler. 5. Fascism. This term generally denotes regimes sustained by dictatorship, coercion, and massacre. Specifically, it refers to a movement that began in 1929 in Italy under the leadership of Mussolini. 6. Phalanxism. In the 19th century and in 1814, the centralized and organized groups of the army, as well as the partisans, were called phalanges. In the 20th century, a quasi-fascist organization called the Spanish Falange emerged in Spain in 1933, whose founder was José Antonio Primo de Rivera. 7. Tyranny. A term for oppressive governments that seized power unlawfully in ancient Greece and were called tyrannos in Greece. 8. Machiavellianism, New Despotism. The Machiavellian school of thought, also called the philosophy of New Despotism, consists of principles and directives proposed by the Italian philosopher and statesman Machiavelli, 1469–1527, for governance. It advocates for establishing strong secular states not subordinate to the church or religion, favoring oppression and unlimited rule. It asserts that humans are inherently wicked, necessitating a strong and authoritarian government to control this wickedness. 9. Nihilism. Nihilism or nothingness. This term comes from the word nihil, in Latin meaning nothing. And nihilism is a philosophical school that denies any kind of moral value and advocates absolute skepticism and negation of existence. 10. Sophism. In the Greek language, Sophisma and Sophia mean education and Sophos means wisdom. But in terms of the term sophist, it is a title for philosophers before Socrates. They were criticized by Socrates and Plato. But later it was said to those who won over their opponents in debates and conversations with fallacies and language games. 11. Skepticism. This is the philosophy of skeptics. Its followers believe that humans have no way of knowing truths and therefore must suspend judgment on all matters, even possibly accepting mathematical sciences. This approach is similar to Sophism and relativism. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, make us happy by subscribing, liking, and commenting, and join our friend. 12. Atheism. Followers of this school assert that there is nothing beyond nature. They consider humans as merely natural beings that should be governed by natural reason alone. 13. Communism. Communism, derived from the Latin root communis, meaning shared, became popularized in 1840. It does not limit sharing to wealth and possessions but extends it to women and sexual matters. According to communism, all economic resources of a country belong to the community, not individuals or families. Communism in the new sense means that the state controls all economic centers of society, and everything must be under its control. 14. Marxism. The specific meaning of communism prevalent today in various parts of the world is Marxist communism. This is because the founder of communism, Karl Marx, a German philosopher 1818–1883, was followed by Marxists like Friedrich Engels, Lenin, and Stalin. 15. Leninism. Leninism is another form of Marxism attributed to Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, the founder of the communist regime and the leader of the October 1917 revolution in Russia. Lenin modified Marx's ideas to suit the Russian societal conditions, adding and removing elements to fit the circumstances. His beliefs changed after the revolution and gaining power compared to before the revolution. 16. Stalinism. After Lenin, Joseph Stalin 1879–1953, the Prime Minister, General Secretary of the Communist Party and dictator of the former Soviet Union, came to power. He implemented reforms in line with Lenin's beliefs, which became known as Stalinism. 17. Bolshevism. Bolshevism was the ideology of the Bolshevik Party led by Lenin. It emerged due to a disagreement within the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party over membership. As a result, the party split into two groups: the Bolsheviks, meaning majority in Russian, led by Lenin, and the Mensheviks, meaning minority, led by Martov. In 1918, Lenin renamed his party to All Russian Communist Party Bolsheviks, in 1925 to All Union Communist Party, and in 1953 to Communist Party of the Soviet Union. 18. Populism. Populism refers to belief in the people. It advocates pursuing political goals based on the will of the people, separate from parties and institutions, and considers the will of the people as the ultimate right and morality. In other words, whatever the people want is their right and morality. In essence, Bolshevism combines Marxism and populism. 19. Bourgeoisie. In the Middle Ages, an urban freeman, burgher, who was neither a lord nor a peasant was called a bourgeois. In the 17th and 18th centuries, lords and employers referred to themselves against workers and merchants with this term. 20. Socialism. The term socialism, society Belge, means social in French and in English. It refers to a political ideology whose goal is the community's control over the means of production and their administration for the benefit of all. However, this definition is not comprehensive because public control over property and production has a broad meaning. But its main aspect is the socialist emphasis on community superiority and common benefit over individualism and personal gain. Socialism is divided into various types such as liberal socialism, Marxist socialism, modern socialism, evolutionary socialism, Fabian socialism, Guild socialism, parliamentary socialism, and others. 21. Capitalism. Capitalism is a system in which the means of production are provided through private capital and wealth remains in the ownership of capitalists. In capitalism, workers are hired laborers for the capitalists, and all financial power will be in the hands of a few individuals in society. In contrast to capitalism, communism, Leninism, and Stalinism advocate. 22. Peportanism. Popery is one of the American religious sects that legitimizes the accumulation of wealth, capitalism, and unfair trade. This path is the main element of capitalists and the capitalist system. 23. Nationalism. Nationalism is the belief in the superiority of one nation over all other nations, and the absolute loyalty to one's own nation, and the glorification of each nation and tribe over its own culture, language, and race. Therefore, nationalism considers itself superior to all and others inferior, which is divided into economic and political nationalism. 24. Internationalism. In contrast to nationalism, internationalism believes that the welfare and happiness of humanity require nations to cooperate regardless of national biases. 25. Anarchism. In Greek, it means government, and anarchy means without government. Therefore, anarchism sees government as causing people's troubles and misfortunes. The foundation of anarchism is hostility toward the state. However, they are also opposed to chaos but envision a system and government based on free cooperation. The pioneer of modern anarchism is Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, a Frenchman from the early 19th century. 26. Idealism. Idealism is the worship of ideas, and an idealist is someone who believes that politics should be subject to human aspirations or ideals. This approach contrasts with realism or pragmatism and giving authenticity to reality. 27. Realism. As mentioned, realism and adherence to truth is opposed to idealism. A realist tries to adapt himself to the realities of the world and society and intervenes real factors in events. 28. Feudalism. Feudalism is a large social, economic, and political organization that existed in many parts of Europe before the formation of new national states. The main feature of feudalism is that large parts of the lands come under the control of the nobility on behalf of the feudal lords, and these large estates are leased to farmers by the feudal lords or their representatives. The nobility had judicial, governmental, financial, and political powers over the farmers of that region. However, in modern times, feudalism is called a country where some nobles and property owners own properties and farmers are deprived of political rights, or they have some political rights but to a lesser extent. 29. Factionalism. A faction means a party. George Washington used this term instead of party at the beginning of America's independence. Factionalism means partyism and belief in the necessity of political parties and the reliance of the state and government on public parties, also known as the party system. It stands against communism, which is a single-party system. 30. Multi-partism system. It means multi-party, which has emerged in Western democracy and in the political system. There are multiple parties that share power, and none of these parties gain absolute majority, and the country is governed based on multi-party. Sometimes multiple parties join forces to gain more seats in parliament, but the coalition is not permanent, and the number of parties does not undermine national power. 31. Materialism. The doctrine of materialism, attributing reality and originality to matter, is one of the oldest doctrines and dates back to ancient Greece. It is the belief that only matter exists and anything beyond the natural and metaphysical, such as God, soul, and angels, does not exist. 32. Dogmatism. Dogmatism is a doctrine that claims acceptance of a subject does not require argumentation. It must be accepted without reason and considered self-evident. Alternatively, it involves blindly adhering to previous traditions. 33. Dialectic. This term has been used by philosophers in various meanings in philosophy. However, linguistically, dialect refers to local language, conversation, speaking style, dialect, and idioms of different nations. Philosophers have assigned specific meanings to it. Socrates used it to mean dialogue and philosophizing on any subject in the form of questions and answers. Plato used it in the sense of logical method, and Hegel and Marx used it similarly. 34. Radicalism. In essence, it means root, a term first used by English liberals in the 19th century who aimed to penetrate to the root of an issue, advocating for the fundamental reform of the church, and sometimes advocating for the dissolution of the aristocratic parliament, mainly referring to those dissatisfied and angry with existing political and social institutions and seeking social change. 35. Democracy. The term democracy originates from ancient Greek civilization, where they called the rule of the people over the people democracy. In the modern sense, it refers to a government by the people, wherein the administration of the country is in the hands of the majority through the election of representatives. 36. Syndicalism. In France, trade unions are called syndicates. Syndicalism refers to a political doctrine and a revolutionary movement that reconciles socialism and anarchism. 37. Ideology. Ideology is a method of thought that seeks to both explain the world and transform it. The term was first used by the French scientist Destutt de Tracy, who intended it to mean science of ideas or philosophy of ideas. It is sometimes used to denote careful or uncritical thought and, in French, refers to someone who is an adherent of an ideology and has a reference aspect called an ideologue. 38. Opposition. In French it means opposition or opponents, referring to the efforts of unions, parties, groups, factions, and individuals to achieve their goals, which are in opposition to the goals of those in political power. Opposition, in its limited sense, is a term for a group officially recognized by the constitution of parliamentary government systems, forming a group in parliament that does not support the government but considers itself faithful to the constitution. 39. Maoism refers to the ideas of Mao Zedong, the leader of the Chinese Communist Revolution, about revolutionary warfare strategy and reconciling Marxism, Leninism with the conditions of China. Mao transferred the center of struggle from cities to rural areas and from workers in cities to peasants in rural areas, achieving victory in his goals with his peasant army and guerrilla warfare. 40. Secularism. Secularism assigns primacy to worldly matters and material concerns, rejecting matters outside of the world, such as spiritual and religious issues. It was first promoted by skeptical and atheistic groups in England under the supervision of Ho Yoke and was later advocated by European merchants and economic entrepreneurs to expedite their goals by eradicating religion. The motto of secularism is to remove religion from the scene of life, including politics, economics, society, and art. According to secularism, religion is separate from politics. 41. Laicism, a doctrine opposed to religion and spirituality, equivalent in meaning to secularism. 42. Pluralism. Pluralism refers to a doctrine of diversity, which does not recognize salvation and human redemption in one religion. It believes that the absolute truth is common among all religions. Therefore, followers of all religions are considered people of salvation and redemption. Advocates of pluralism argue that religion has various interpretations, and each individual's interpretation of religion is correct. It is evident that ultimately, these ideas will lead to the closure of religious law and spirituality. 43. Liberalism. This term is derived from the word liberal and has French roots, libre meaning free. This doctrine considers human life only in this world. It says, human freedom is unlimited and no force or source can constrain him. He must determine his rights and wrongs. In other words, nothing as religion can determine the fate of humanity and make something permissible or forbidden for him. 44. Permissiveness. Permissiveness means denying divine halal and haram and not adhering to religious commandments in personal and social life. This idea aims to spread irreligiosity and promote unconstraint among people. This idea is the result of liberalism. 45. Humanism. In humanistic doctrine, humans replace God as the arbiter of values and humans themselves decide the basis of values. God is seen as the solution to human spiritual pains and the fulfiller of human needs, without any inherent essence of his own. 46. Individualism. Individualism means giving priority to the individual and believes that the happiness and pursuit of an individual lead to the happiness of society. 47. Existentialism. A school of thought that considers human perfection to exist only in his freedom. It believes that the only free being created is human and there is no compulsion or necessity imposed on him. Anything contrary to freedom and conflicting with it takes humans out of humanity. 48. Reformism. A thinking that considers the domain of religion only as the relationship between humans and God, and removes religion from the social and political scene. Both this approach and secularism aim to eliminate religion. 49. Ethical positivism. Its followers believe that ethical values have no rational reality, and good and bad are subject to people's opinion. If something is said to be good today, it is valued, and if the same thing is said tomorrow, it is bad. That subject becomes good, bad, and undesirable. 50. Positivism. Followers of this doctrine believe that humans only acquire knowledge through senses and classify material and natural affairs. They say that anything more tangible and perceptible is more attention-worthy to humans. 51. Modernism. It means the renewal of tools, and the ultimate basis for human and his happiness is only science. Followers of this ideology believe that science should replace religion, new means, knowledge, mentalities, and psychologies should replace old methods. 52. Postmodernism. This approach says that due to dependence on culture, language, customs, and traditions, humans cannot look superior to them and cannot judge which culture is superior. 53. Liberal Protestantism. This view is influenced by modernism, which considers the basis of religion to be the religious experience of individuals and doubts that reason can express opinions on theological matters. 54. Monarchy. It means a monarchical regime in which the king personally holds the powers. It usually comes to power either hereditarily or by force, and the king considers himself above the law. 55. Constitutional. It means constitutional monarchy, in which the power of the king is limited and the parliament assists the king in performing his duties. The parliament legislates, and after the king's approval, it is put into execution by the executive branch. 56. Mobocracy. It refers to a government by incompetent and self-serving people who are distant from political, economic, and cultural spheres. 57. Symposium. It refers to a meeting held for discussion and exchange of views on a specific topic of interest to the participants. 58. Romanticism. An artistic, literary, and philosophical movement that emerged in Europe from the late 18th century and continued until the mid-19th century. This movement is against the classical movement that emphasizes nature and emphasizes emotion, feeling, and imagination. 59. Lobbying. In English, lobby means corridor. But in American political terminology, it means exerting influence on the legislative branch by contacting the two houses and influencing them, and imposing one's opinion through it. 60. Feminism. It is a compound of two words, feminine meaning feminine and with the suffix ism, which entered the French language for the first time in 1837. In terminology, it refers to what was known as the women's movement in the 19th century in America. Before that, in the 17th century, there were feminist tendencies in England. The West, by promoting a culture of feminism and by pulling women into factories and workshops for capitalist trade, gave rise to a particular prosperity, which resulted in the degradation and loss of women's identity and the collapse of the family institution.